أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه من والاه. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us recognize the truth and help us follow it, and to help us recognize the falsehood and help us avoid it. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make the best of our deeds, the last ones that we do, and the best of our days that we shall meet Him. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Well, if you can come a little closer, a little closer. It's the same charge, Abu Ali. Okay. Where did we stop? Allah barik feek, Ahmed. Where did we stop? Who remembers where we stopped? Who was here last meeting? There were quite a few of you. I remember some of the names, some of the faces. So we talked about the early days of the Prophet ﷺ and when he was born. And the Prophet ﷺ, as we said, that when he was born, shortly after he was born, his mother sent him actually to the countryside, so to speak, to the basically the rural area, to spend some times with the Bedouins, specifically with Halima from the tribe of Banu Sa'd, where he stayed there for a couple of years, after which he returned back and stayed with his mother. And he stayed with his mother until his mother died when he was 6 years old. And when he died, then his grandfather, who was the big leader of Quraysh, basically took him under his guardianship. And what was the name of his grandfather? Abdul Muttalib. And he stayed with Abdul Muttalib for 2 years, at which time actually Abdul Muttalib himself died. But Abdul Muttalib used to love Muhammad ﷺ very much, and he used to repeat all the time that this son of mine will become someone significant or someone important. And Abdul Muttalib had many sons, 10 sons actually, or actually 10 after Abdullah has died. And what he used to do, like almost like parading around the Kaaba, that all 10 actually would go accompany him to the Kaaba. They would have like a small carpet or something by the Kaaba where he would be sitting, and they will be standing outside. They would not be sitting with him, and he would not let anybody actually sit with him except Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. That when Prophet Muhammad would go in there, his uncle would try to take him away, and he would repeat, Abdul Muttalib, that no, leave him, this son of mine will become someone very significant. And he used to take him with him to the different meetings, council meetings and whatnot. That's why it is believed that Prophet Muhammad learned much of the leadership skills from his grandfather. Now when his grandfather died, then he moved to the guardianship, to the house of his uncle Abu Talib. And Abu Talib had many children, and he was very poor. But he and his wife used to love Prophet Muhammad very much and treat him like his own child, as if he was his own child, their own child. And one thing that they observed, because they were poor, that the children, his own children, the children of Abu Talib, used to fight over food. But they noticed that whenever they put the food, all the children will fight over the food, but Muhammad ﷺ would sit on the side, not participating in that. So they were concerned that basically the kid is going to starve. So they would always set some food aside for him ﷺ. And Prophet Muhammad used to love him very much. And Abu Talib used to go on certain journey to the Levantine area of Bilad al-Sham, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, that part. And on one of the trips, and the story is not completely solid, by the way, but it is mentioned in the books of Seerah that the Prophet ﷺ insisted on accompanying him, on going out with him. And on that trip, before they reached their destination, yes? How old was he? He was 12 years old. Prophet Muhammad was about 12 years old. That before they reached the destination, still in the northern part of Arabia, they stopped by, there was a monk in that area called Bahira or Buhaira. And normally they would just pass by him. He was a Christian monk. They would just pass by him and he wouldn't even care. But on that trip, he felt that there's something special about the people in that caravan. There's some narration here that there was basically a cloud covering them or something, which is not really that solid or that authentic. But anyway, he felt that there's something really strange about the caravan this time. So he invited them for some food. And they went in there, but they left Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as a young kid to guard the provisions and the animals and everything in there. So they went inside, and he was looking for someone. And he felt that the person he was looking for is missing. So he asked him, are you all in here? They said, yes, but there's one child that we left him there by the provision. And he said, bring him over. And he said that when he saw him, he felt that there's something really special about that child. It was described in their books as to what the Prophet would look like, or what would be around the time that he would come. And he started asking him questions. How do you sleep? And the first thing that he asked him, he said, I ask you by the gods and the idols of Mecca. And Prophet Muhammad said to him that don't swear by the idols of Mecca, for there's nothing that I hate as much as I hate them. He said, then I ask you by God. He said, yes. And he started asking me about how he sleeps, how he eats, how he wakes, and all of these things. And he felt something really special about him. And he looked at his uncle, Abu Talib, and he said, who is he to you? And Abu Talib said, he's my son. And Bahira said, no, his father couldn't be dead, could be alive. His father could not be alive. His father must be dead. And he says, yes, he's my nephew and his father died. And he looked on the back of Prophet Muhammad between his shoulders, and he found what is described as a seal of prophethood. The seal of prophethood is like a birthmark. It is described actually in one of the hadith in Bukhari about the Islam of Salman al-Farisi, that he had this like a big mole on his back between his shoulders that has like 3 sticking hairs that are curved. So it is described in a certain way. He looked at him and he knew that this was the guy, this was the upcoming prophet. So he told his uncle, he told Abu Talib that take him back to Mecca. If you take him to Syria, then the Jews over there will recognize him and they will try to kill him. So Abu Talib got really scared, so he took him back. So this was the instance of Bahira the monk. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he grew up, and initially when he was young, he was helping his uncle with the house, and generating some money. And he worked as a shepherd for some time. And he said ﷺ that every prophet actually worked as a shepherd for some time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected him, so he never ever bowed to an idol, even though everybody did, including some of his own family members, but he never bowed to any idol. He used to even actually hate them, as I described earlier. And then when there are different narrations as to how old he was. One of them says about 20 years old. Or it seems that he's less than that, maybe about 15 years old. He participated in something called Harb al-Fujar. What is Harb al-Fujar? Harb al-Fujar is like a war. It's called like the war of aggression. The reason it is called the war of aggression because it happened during the sacred months. During the sacred months, Muslims even that before Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, were not allowed to initiate any fighting or any battle in these months, and this happened during those sacred months. And all he did basically is that he was helping his uncle, preparing the arrows and whatnot. So he did not actively participate, but he was preparing and handing and providing the arrows in that. Then after that, the year after that, a treaty called Hilf al-Fudul. Hilf al-Fudul, the Prophet ﷺ, after Islam, he praised it. He said that I participated in a treaty in Jahiliyyah. He said, if I were to be invited to the same thing in Islam, I would have responded. In another hadith, the Prophet praised it. He said, it was dearer to me than the humur al-ni'am, than the red camels, which is something like very precious and very valuable. What happened is that there was a person from Yemen who sold some merchandise and a lot of goods to a person by the name of Al-As ibn Wa'il. Al-As ibn Wa'il was the father of Amr ibn al-As. And Al-As ibn Wa'il refused to pay him. So this man went by the Kaaba and he started reciting some beautiful poetry in a way to motivate people to help him. That how can you betray me? You are the people of the Haram. You are the people of Kaaba. And you're doing it bain al-Hijri wal-Hajari. You're doing it between the black stone and the Hijr of Ismail. In other words, how can you do such thing by not giving me back my rights? Then at that time, one of the uncle of Prophet Muhammad, his name is Zubair, he stood up and he said, who would help me give this man back his right? Get his right back to him. And then several people actually responded to him, and they met in a place of a person called Abdullah ibn Jad'an. And they agreed that if anybody's wrong, we will all support him and get his right back. So almost like a treaty of civil rights, so to speak, that we will get them their rights back. And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was present and participated in that as well. Then when Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was 25 years old, or shortly before that, he started getting into business. Basically, he would get money from people, he would trade, and he will share some of the profit with them. And then around that time, a great woman, Khadija alayha radwanillah, who was very rich and beautiful and noble, heard of that young man that everybody used to call as-Sadiq al-Amin, the truthful and the trustworthy. So everybody would trust him, everybody would believe him, alayhi salatu wassalam. So she got impressed by him, so she sent one of her servants named Maysara, and she gave Muhammad some money to do some business with. In other words, the Prophet people were investing with him, so she did the same, and she sent with him her servant Maysara, and she asked him, just watch him, tell me how he's behaving, about his character, about his manners. And what Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did, he bought some goods from Mecca, and he sold them in the Levantine area, and made some profit. And normally that's what people do, will bring the money back. But what the Prophet Muhammad did at that time, with the money that he generated, he bought some more goods in the area of Syria, and he sold them back in Mecca, so he made twice the profit. And he gave her whatever actually is owed to her. And Khadija asked Maysara, how did you find Muhammad? And Maysara praised him like he praised nobody else. He said that I've never seen anybody like him. His character, his manner, his kindness, his gentleness. And he started praising him a lot. So she liked him. So what she decided to do, to send one of her friends, her name was Nafisa bint Munya. And she sent this Nafisa, and she asked her to basically talk to him of the following. You know, Khadija before that, everybody was approaching her for marriage. Like I said, she was noble, she was rich, she was smart, she was beautiful, and the biggest leaders of Mecca were approaching her for marriage, and she was rejecting, she was refusing all of them. So what she did, she sent this Nafisa, her friend, to Muhammad, and she told Muhammad, Nafisa told Muhammad, that Ya Muhammad, you're a young man, why don't you get married? And he said to her, well, I don't have the means. She said to him, well, what if there's a woman who is really rich and beautiful and has the means? And he said, where can I find someone like that? She said to him, Khadija. She was sent by Khadija, of course. You know. And Muhammad ﷺ said, well, Khadija is rejecting people greater than myself. And she said to him, well, she's a close friend of mine, let me talk to her. Of course, she was sent by Khadija. And that's how Khadija ﷺ and the Prophet got married, and her sidaq, her mahr, was 20 camels. And the wali of Prophet Muhammad in the marriage was his uncle Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib, who was the same age as he was. You know, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ never loved anyone as much as he loved Khadija. Among men or among women, nobody, the Prophet ﷺ. So she was the love of his life. She says so much that the Prophet used to talk about her, and Aisha, that the Prophet married after Khadija died. Aisha used to feel jealous of her. She said that I've never felt jealous of any of the Prophet's wives except from Khadija, even though Khadija was long dead. So once Aisha told the Prophet ﷺ that, Ya Muhammad, you keep on talking about Khadija. Khadija was only an old woman, and Allah gave you somebody better, meaning myself. And the Prophet said, no, Allah never gave me anyone better than Khadija. She believed me when everybody called me a liar, and she believed in me when everybody rejected me, and she supported me with her wealth. And Allah gave me children from her and not from anybody else. So nobody measures up to Khadija. Yeah, that's why in the hadith, where the Prophet ﷺ mentioned the 4 perfect women, he says that the 4 perfect women that attain perfection in history, anybody knows all 4 of them. What are the 4? Maryam, the highest, of course, is Maryam bin Imran. Maryam, Mary, the mother of Isa ﷺ, is the highest. Who is the second? Khadija. Khadija is the second, or not in chronological, I'm not saying chronological, I'm talking about the greatness. The greatest one was Maryam, the second one was Khadija, the third one was Fatima bint Muhammad, and the fourth one was Asiya, the wife of the Pharaoh, who raised Moses, who raised Musa alayhi salam. So these are the greatest 4 women in history, as the Prophet alayhi said. So the Prophet alayhi, of course, he had all of his children from Khadija except one. Who were they? Anybody knows all 7? The Prophet had 7 children. Anybody knows all 7?
Ibrahim.
What besides? You know them. I know you know them. I need somebody else. What? Qasim. Idris. No. Good. Nice try, you know. So they were Abdullah, Ibrahim, Qasim, Zainab, Ruqayya, Kulthum and Fatima. Of course, all of them were the children of Khadija, except Ibrahim, who was the son of Maria al-Qibtiyya, Maria the Coptic, who came from Egypt, alayhi salam. And of course, all the sons died when they were young. But all 4 daughters grew up until they lived through Islam and they became Muslim. And all of them died during the Prophet's life, except one of them, who died 6 months later. Who was she? Fatima alayhi ridwanillah. So the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, basically, you know, he married Khadija, and yes.
Did he have any other wives?
Not with Khadija. And he stayed with Khadija until Khadija died. He was 50 when Khadija died, and Khadija was, by the way, the Prophet, when he married her, he was 25. How old was she?
40.
She was 40, so she was 15 years his senior. So when she died, he was 50, so she was 65. You know, 65 looked like 65 at that time. They didn't have plastic surgery, you know. But the Prophet ﷺ used to love her. It's beyond, you know, like the materialistic thing. She was the greatest person. And she was a source of comfort to him ﷺ. So, and he loved her, and he did not marry anybody while he was married to her ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ, then when he was 35, then here the rebuilding of the Kaaba incidents actually took place. What happened is that the Kaaba did not have any ceiling, so some people basically stole some of the treasures that people used to keep inside of Mecca, inside the Kaaba. But not only that, but also with the floods and everything, then it started cracking. So the Kaaba had to be rebuilt. In other words, the structure was not that cohesive anymore. It had to be rebuilt. So they decided, of course, that they're going to rebuild the Kaaba, and they collected money. They said that the money that will be used to build the Kaaba has to be all halal money. So no money from transgression, no money from anything wrong. And they came up with a certain sum that was not, by the way, enough to build the big structure that it was. You know, if you look at the Kaaba now, of course you have the cube and you have the ark that is next to it. This is called Hijr Ismail. You know, if you're making tawaf around the Kaaba, you cannot go through that shortcut. It's not accepted, because tawaf has to be around the Kaaba, and that Hijr is technically part of the Kaaba. So if you go through as if you're going through the Kaaba and not around the Kaaba. Initially this was included in the Kaaba, and the Kaaba had no ceiling and has one door at ground level. That people actually had 2 doors, one from each side. People can go through one door and through the others. But when they rebuilt the Kaaba, the money that they had there was not enough to include the Hijr Ismail. That's why they left it out. They did not have enough halal money, so to speak, to include that, so they left that part out. So anyway, so the Kaaba was crumbling or like cracking. They want to rebuild it, but of course to rebuild it they have to destroy it first, right? I mean, you can't just on the top. They had to destroy it. So they kept on thinking, you know, who will be destroying the Kaaba? They were concerned about, you know, what happened to the people of the elephant. It wasn't long before that, right? You know, when actually the army of the elephant, Abraha al-Ashram, went in and tried to destroy the Kaaba, Allah destroyed the whole army. So they were really concerned that, you know, how can we destroy the Kaaba? The same thing could happen to us. Until eventually, one of the leaders, his name is Walid ibn Mughir al-Makhzumi, he said that, well, we're not destroying it for the destruction, we're destroying it to rebuild it. So they said to him, okay, fine, then you actually break the first stone. And what he did, he started actually breaking the first stones, and he said, okay, now why don't you come and join me and help me break it down? They said, no, we have to wait for a day to see if anything happens to you. If nothing happens to you, then tomorrow we'll help you out. So we'll wait to see anything happen. And of course nothing happened to them, and they started basically destroying the Kaaba until they got, of course, to the big corner, which is the black stone, Al-Hajar al-Aswad. And when they got there, of course, then everybody said, it is our tribe that has to carry it. And every tribe basically said, it is us. And we're willing to defend it by our blood. In other words, a big fight was about to happen among the different tribes. Everybody wants to carry the black stone themselves. And then an old man came up with the idea. He said that, okay, the first person that enters the masjid, he will be the mediator, will accept his judgment. And then true enough, the person that entered the masjid was Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, and everybody was happy. Look, it is a Sadiq al-Amin, the truthful and the trustworthy. And Prophet Muhammad came up with the ingenious idea, of course, is that he put his cloak, alayhi salatu wasalam, and he grabbed the stone himself and he put it on the cloak. And he asked one person from each tribe to carry a corner from that cloak, and they would carry it, put it all the way to the side until they rebuild it, and the same thing actually back and putting it back together. And with that, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was able to dissipate the big fight that was about to erupt actually in Mecca. So everybody used to love him, ﷺ. Everybody used to trust him. You know, even after Islam, everybody used to trust him. They would fight him, but they would trust him. Subhanallah. That's why whenever he says anything, they believe that it's the truth. They don't believe in him as a prophet, but they believe that he would never lie, alayhi salatu wassalam. So anyway, Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, shortly before his 40th year, when he was 40 years of age, he got into the habit of something called the tahannuth. What is the tahannuth? He would go up to the cave of Hira, and he would stay there the whole month of Ramadan. He would stay for several days, and sometimes even his family would go with him, but somewhere like a little far, not with him, but a little far, not in the cave. And he would just sit there and then contemplate. He would contemplate about the situations, about the moral and the social corruption, about the way people are conducting their life, as to how they can build a statue with their own hands and then worship it. I mean, you're making it with your hands, you're building it with your hands, and then you're worshiping it afterward. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So there has to be a way out. There has to be, this cannot be the truth. You know, there's a story mentioned about Umar alayhi ridwanullah during his day of Jahiliyyah, that once he would be sitting down and they would see him actually smiling. What happened? He said that one day I was going on a journey. I did not have a God to pray to. So I made one out of dates and I started worshiping it until I started getting hungry. Then I started eating it. Yani a God that is eaten, a God that can be broken. How is he expected to help me out? So it didn't make any sense to him. You know, a God that is made in China, made in whatever, or handmade, or whatever it is at the best. And they start worshiping him. And he stayed like that. He did it for a few years, alayhi salatu wassalam, until one year when he was 40, alayhi salatu wassalam, of course the big event happened. He was in the cave by himself at that time. And of course, by the way, the cave is not a place where you find traffic, so nobody passes by. It's like a little remote, so nobody just happens to pass by, unless a person is going straight or directly in there. So he was sitting actually in that cave, and then a man appeared to him. And he said, out of nowhere, and he said to him, Ya Muhammad, Iqra, read. And Prophet Muhammad says, Ma ana biqari, I cannot read. And he says, فَغَطَّنِي, that he says he squeezed me, almost like suffocating me, until I felt I was going to pass out. And he let me go. And he repeated, Iqra. And Prophet Muhammad says, مَا أَنَا بِقَارِئ. The Prophet was illiterate. He could not read, he could not write. I cannot read. And he repeated that even stronger than the first time. And the third time, until after that, he gave him the first 5 verses of the Quran. Iqra. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a leech-like cloth. Read, and your Lord is the most bountiful. He's the one that taught the man, that taught by the pen, he taught man that which he knew not. And the man disappeared, he went away. And Prophet Muhammad felt that it was imprinted in his heart. But still, he wasn't sure of what that was, you know, what did just happen. So he was trembling, he was shivering, perplexed. What did just happen? And he went down, and there are slightly different narrations of the story. By the way, hadith narrated, a long hadith by Aisha alayhi ridwanullah. He says, one narration, as he was going down, he heard voice from above, and he saw Jibreel. Now the man that came to him, of course, was Jibreel. The man that came to him was Gabriel, but in the shape of a man, which is not his real shape. But this time he saw him in his real shape. He said, I looked up, and here was Jibreel alayhi salam, arhamakumullah, having 600 wings. He says, he was wherever I look. In other words, he was filling the whole horizon. And he told me, Ya Muhammad, I am Jibreel, and you are the messenger of God. And then Prophet Muhammad ﷺ went back to Khadija, trembling and shivering. Cover me, cover me. And he said to her, لَقَدْ خَشِيتُ عَلَى نَفْسِي, I feared on myself. I fear for what happened to me. And Khadija alayhi ridwanullah, she comforted him. You know, by the way, sometimes if you want to comfort someone, it doesn't mean you cry with them. Because when you cry with them, you're adding to their problems. You know, though they're their poor little thing. That's not what she said to him alayhi ridwanullah. She said that know by Allah, Allah will never let go, Allah will never forsake you. So she was reassuring him that Allah will never let you down, Allah will not forsake you. For you help the needy, you help the orphan, you help the poor. And she started reminding him of his greatness, that someone like that, Allah will not let him down. This is how she gives him comfort. But at the same time, she did something concrete. She took him to her uncle, to her cousin, older, you know, Waraq ibn Nawfal, who was a Christian at that time, who actually had knowledge of the book. And she told him, your nephew, meaning Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, has something to tell you. And Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam told him, and Waraq ibn Nawfal told him that the one that came to you was Namus al-Akbar, was the one that came to Musa. In other words, the one that carried the revelation. In other words, Jibreel alayhi salam. And he said something really strange to him. He said, I wish I were young, so when your people kick you out, I will be there to support you. I mean, his people loved him. Prophet Muhammad's people loved him more than anybody else. So he said, أَوَ مُخْرِجِيَّهُمْ, are they going to kick me out? Are they going to just oppress me and fight me? And he told them, anyone that brings forth this message will be opposed. And of course, that's exactly what happened. You know, subhanAllah, when you conform, when you are a yes person, everybody likes you. But when you take a stand, that's when people oppose you. In other words, if you just say yes for everything that people say, he's a conformist. That's it. He follows everybody else. People would love people like that. You know, but once you take a stand, once you challenge the status quo, that's when people actually fight you and oppose you. And that's what happened to Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. After being the most beloved person, he became the most hated person. Because of the stand that he took. Because he stood for what he believed in, and he challenged the exist and believe. You know, this moment of Iqra, Bismi Rabbika alladhi khalaq, the story, most of us probably know the story already. But like Sayyid Qutb said, he says that rarely do we stop and think about the significance of that point, of that moment. What happened? What did just happen? He said, without any contest, this moment was the most and the biggest turning point in the history of humanity. Because what happened at that moment, humanity started receiving its guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not from the man-made laws. In other words, now people have the message and the guidance of Allah in their own hands. Which, you know, something that's the biggest turning point at that time. Not only that, but anyway, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, the All-Great, the creator of the whole universe, the earth, the galaxies, and the whole universe, by just saying, by a word, be, and it became. This great Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looked down at that insignificant human being, as us, human being, and He gave them His own words. That's how significant it is. The very words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of the universe, now are in our hands. That's why it is that significant. Especially, by the way, there's something really special that the companions of the Prophet, they appreciated and they knew that nobody else did, which is the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was guiding their life one step at a time. Imagine for a second that you have a personal problem and you go talk discreetly to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam about your own personal problem, and the solution comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. Can you imagine that feeling? You know, the Khawla bint Tha'laba in the beginning of Surah Al-Mujadilah, she comes to the Prophet complaining about a private matter with her husband. What should I do, Ya Rasulullah? How should we deal with that situation? Private matter, discreetly. And then the revelation comes down. قد سمع الله قول التي تجادلك في زوجها وتشتكي إلى الله والله يسمع تحاوركما. And after that, then the solution came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah heard what that woman actually was discussing with you. And Allah heard that conversation. So imagine that this feeling that Allah was guiding their step, their life, one step at a time directly. Now of course now we have the Quran, but it's like general guidance. But imagine if the guidance came to you personally. The kind of feeling that Sahaba alayhim ridwanullah had. The same thing when Aisha was accused of committing adultery, and Allah revealed the first two verses of Surah An-Nur, the first two pages of Surah An-Nur about her. You can imagine the feeling that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was giving them solution directly. That's why after the death of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq took Umar, and they went to visit Ayman. Ayman was basically almost like the maid of Amina bint Wahab, the mother of the Prophet, and she raised the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and the Prophet used to love her very much, and he used to visit her a lot. So they wanted to continue that tradition of visiting Ayman even after the death of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And when they visited her, they found her really crying very bitterly. And they said to her, what makes you cry? Don't you know that what Allah has for the Prophet is better than what this whole world has? And she said, I'm not crying for that. I'm crying that with the death of the Prophet, the revelation stopped. That's it. No more revelation. So that direct connection, that direct link is no more. That's the Sahaba alayhi ridwanullah had. So from then on, then the guidance came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But look at the beginning of the revelation. Allah started by saying, Iqra, read, which is a call for acquiring and pursuing knowledge. And that has to be the beginning. The beginning was not pray, it was read. It was not pray, but it says basically seek knowledge. Why knowledge? And the scholars, they said that knowledge comes even before Iman, before belief. Why that? Because you cannot depend on your feelings to know what the truth is. If you ask people of different faith, different religions, they would tell you, oh, I believe that this is the truth. How do you know? I feel it. It clicks with me. Well, feelings are very subjective, and obviously feelings are not the right criteria, the criterion for determining that, because each person's feeling led them to different conclusions, right? So there has to be something less biased, something that is more objective than feelings, and that has to be knowledge. Because knowledge guarantees that what you have is the truth. Then after that, then use your feelings and go as far as you can. But the beginning has to be something that is objective. That's why the first command that was given was Iqra, read. And that reading, that knowledge, guarantees that what you have or leads you to the truth. Another important thing to keep in mind in this whole thing is that if you believe, it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where's the ABR? Is he here? Mabu? Okay, Hajj Ayman. What's the verse in Surah Al-Hujurat? وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ ولكن الله حبب إليكم الإيمان. Putting you on the spot, I'm sorry. ولكن الله حبب إليكم الإيمان وأعلموا أن فيكم رسول الله لو يطيعكم في كثير من الأمر لعنتم. And this is the part. ولكن الله حبب إليكم الإيمان وزينه في قلوبكم وكره إليكم الكفر والفسوق والعصيان. It is Allah who made Iman beautiful in your heart, and He made it beloved to you, and made disbelief hated to you. Which means, if you believe, it is not because you're smart and you're educated. If you believe, because Allah gave it to you. That's what this verse is saying. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانَ. In other words, it is Allah who gave it to you. It is not natural that automatically, if I'm intelligent, I'm going to be guided. Because there could be different factors that can sway me in one direction or the others. But it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to him in Surah Al-Duha, وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى. Right? He found you, dalla means you don't have directions. It's not that he was astray, but he did not have direction. So Allah found you, to Prophet Muhammad, Allah found you lacking directions, and He guided you. So if you have guidance, this is for all of us. If we have guidance, it's because Allah gave it to us. It's not because Allah automatically, because I earned it myself, because I'm intelligent. No, there are people more intelligent than myself, and they don't have the guidance. That's why if I have it, it's because Allah gave it to me subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانَ. It is rather Allah indeed who made Iman beloved to you and beautified it in your heart, and made kufr, disbelief, وَكَرَّ عَلَيْكُمُ الْكُفْرَ وَالْفُسُوقَ وَالْعِصْيَانَ, hated to you, and aggression as well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Iqra, seek knowledge. But after Iqra, after Allah says Iqra, Allah put another important component in seeking knowledge. What's the next verse? اقرأ Bismi Rabbika. Read in the name of your Lord. In other words, it has to be pursued with a proper intention. When reading, when pursuing any knowledge, any education, it has to be done with the proper intention. Why? Because if it is not pursued with the proper intention, it would lead to aggression, it would lead to arrogance. And Allah says in the Quran that some people, Allah misguided them through their knowledge. So if in other words, the person does not have the sincerity in seeking knowledge, knowledge will not help. People will end up making those big weapons of mass destructions. You know, what kind of knowledge is that? That's knowledge, that's a knowledge that is clearly separated from God. Somebody who invents a weapon that kills thousands of people. That's not useful knowledge. So when Allah says Iqra, He followed by saying Bismi Rabbika, in the name of your Lord. So it has to be pursued for the proper reason, with the proper intention, with the proper attitude. Bismi Rabbika alladhi khalaq. But the interesting thing, Allah says Bismi Rabbika, in the name of your Lord. So there's a personal element in there. When He says, it's not Iqra Bismillah, even though the meaning is the same. But when He said Bismi Rabbika, it's your Lord, which means there's like some kind of a tender relationship in there. So He is your personal Lord. Read in the name of your own Lord, which anyway foretell of difficulties that are coming ahead. Iqra Bismi Rabbika alladhi khalaq, who created. And then after that, Iqra, repeated that. Why repeating it? Why the repetition of Iqra? So first Iqra Bismi Rabbika alladhi khalaq, and then Iqra wa Rabbuka al-Akram. Why the repetition of Iqra? What would be the value of repeating something like that? Emphasis is one of them. Another thing to indicate that knowledge or pursuing knowledge is a lifelong process. You never stop. Say, alhamdulillah, I took a seminar on the Seerah, I know everything now, I have to move on. Nobody knows everything. That's why pursuing knowledge is a lifelong project. Nobody stops. You know, they said about Ahmad bin Hanbal alayhi ridwanillah, Ahmad bin Hanbal was the most learned person of his time. And he used to go from one place to another, from one book to the other, reading and studying and all of that. He told me, yeah, Imam, take it easy on yourself. Nobody knows as much as you do. And he would say, مع المحبرة حتى المقبرة. I will be with the inkwell all the way until I die. In other words, it doesn't stop anywhere. When you stop learning, that's when you die, by the way. You know, when everything stagnates. So that's what indicates a repetition. Another important meaning of the repeating or the repeated command of Iqra is to indicate the perseverance and the steadfastness, الثبات. That you start doing something. Most of us start doing something. We can start something really good, but the challenge is to continue it. So you start actually studying, and then be challenges and difficulties and whatnot, and then Iqra, continue, don't stop. وَرَبُّكَ الْأَكْرَمُ الَّذِي عَلَّمَ بِالْقَلَمِ عَلَّمَ الْإِنسَانَ مَا لَمْ يَعْلَمْ. He's the one that taught by the pen. He taught man that which he knew not. So if we have any knowledge, it comes from Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. It comes from Him. عَلَّمَ الْإِنسَانَ مَا لَمْ يَعْلَمْ. You know, that's why the more you learn, it should not lead to arrogance. It should lead to more humbleness or thankfulness and gratitude. That alhamdulillah, He gave me all of that. So the knowledge that I have comes from Him. عَلَّمَ الْإِنسَانَ مَا لَمْ يَعْلَمْ. You know, the beauty of these 5 verses is that there's a lot of repetition in it, but you don't feel it. Iqra is repeated twice. Rabbuka is repeated twice. Allama is repeated twice. Al-Insan is repeated twice. But the way you read it, it flows so smoothly. And this is the beauty of the Quran. And of course, this was only part of Surah Al-Alaq, not the whole surah. And the Quran came down in pieces, in segments. So after Iqra came another surah, and then after that the rest, another surah, and then the rest of that. And this is a note on the side that every time a revelation comes down from Jibreel, then he will tell him this part belongs in here, that part belongs in there. And the order of the Quran also comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So anyway, inshallah we'll stop in here. We'll see if there's any question.
We still have like 20 minutes for
Fine, let's take a couple of questions and we'll continue inshallah. Yes? Waraq ibn Nawfal. And Waraq ibn Nawfal died shortly after he met with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. His name is Waraqa like paper. Waraqa bin Nawfal. And he died shortly after that. See what happened, I'll cover this inshallah and then we'll stop in here. After Iqra came down, the first 5 verses, then the revelation stopped. There are different opinions as to how long it took. It seems that some days, or weeks at the most, even though some narrations said a longer period of time, but that's really how long it seems that it took. Probably, about maybe days or weeks at the most. And then now, the reality basically sunk in. So the Prophet ﷺ now understood the significance of these verses, and he now accepted and understood the fact that he is the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He's the Prophet. He's the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then, of course, then came the second batch of revelations, of verses. After Iqra, the revelation has stopped, and then came down what? Al-Muddathir. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuha al-Muddathir, Qum fa'andir. O you who's covered up, stand up and then start warning. So that's the command that came. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya al-Muddathir, Qum fa'andir, wa rabbaka fakabbir, wa thiyabaka fatahir, wa rujza fahjur, wa la tamnun tastakthir, wa li rabbika fasbir, to the end of the surah. The whole surah was revealed actually at that time. And that's when the command came to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to convey the message. Before that, Iqra, there's no command in there. There's no command to convey the message. But now the command came down that you have to start conveying the message, and that's when Khadija alayhi became the first Muslim. So the first person that became Muslim was Khadija alayhi when that thing was revealed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuha al-Muddathir, Qum, stand up, fa'andir, and start warning. In other words, now there is a command. The command came to convey the message. Now to convey the message, how much of the message was revealed by then? Just 5 verses of Iqra and Surah Al-Muddathir. Right? In other words, very little. But yet, it's still enough materials to convey. That's why nobody has an excuse for not conveying the message, or at least telling people about it. When the Prophet ﷺ said, بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً, convey on my behalf, even if it is 1 verse. But the important thing is that if I know 1 verse, I should converse the verse that I know, not the verse that I do not know. In other words, talk about that which I know, and not getting into the things and talk about everything. MashaAllah, I took 1 or 2 classes, now I want to talk about everything. No, talk about that which you know. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuha al-Muddathir, Qum fa'andir, stand up. That's why here the wife, he said that since then he never rested. When Allah told him stand up and start warning, then he never rested afterward. He never took any rest afterward, alayhi salatu wassalam. وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ, and glorify your Lord. Glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means that nothing else actually stands with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the one that you glorify is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah did not say, وَكَبِّرْ رَبَّكَ. There's a difference between كَبِّرْ رَبَّكَ and رَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ. When Allah says, وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ, means it is only your Lord that you glorify. It's like saying, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ, instead of saying نَعْبُدُ إِيَّاكَ. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ means it is you that we worship. So here Allah is saying, وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ. It is your Lord that you have to worship. وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. You purify. What is thiyab? Clothes, but also refers to hearts, by the way. There's a verse of poetry in Arabic, it says, that one poet, he says, وَسُلِّ ثِيَابِ مِنْ ثِيَابِكِ تَنْسُلِي. That basically, take your heart out of my heart, so to speak. So that's why the word thiyab refers to commonly to clothes, but it also refers to the heart. So here there's a call to cleanse the heart and the outside and the inside. And وَالرُّجْزَ فَهْجُرْ, avoid anything that is impure. So here the call, some they say rujz are the idols, by the way, one of the interpretations. So here the call is to purify, but not the physical, which much of the time we pay attention to. We pay so much attention to the wudu and all of these things, which is great. But what about the inside? What about the inside? That's why, subhanAllah, there's a beautiful writing by Shaykh al-Ghazali, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, when he was talking about the tahara in his ihya. He said, you will read, what is he going to say about the tahara? He says, but know that the tahara is the tahara of the heart. The true purity is the purity of the heart. So that's really what has to be started. In other words, this is the part that you don't want to neglect. Yes, you do the wudu and all of that, but you don't want to forget what goes inside your heart as well, with the other physical thing. So Allah says, وَالرُّجْزَ فَهْجُرْ وَلَا تَمْنُنْ تَسْتَكْثِرْ. Don't feel that you're doing too much. In other words, when you're doing something, for the sake of Allah, we're doing something for other people. Don't think of yourself that I'm doing too much. No. Anything that you do to benefit other people, it's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on you. And Allah says, وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ. And for the sake of your Lord, have a lot of patience and perseverance. Which of course, again, foretells the Prophet that there will be a difficult task ahead. When Allah tells him, you have to be patient. There has to be a lot of patience, means there will be difficulties coming. Prepare yourself for that. And in preparation for that, came after that Surah Al-Muzammil, which we'll discuss next time, that calls for the person, for the Prophet and the Muslims to strengthen their bond with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here, يَا أَيُّهَا الْمُدَّثِّرْ قُمْ فَأَنذِرْ. يَا أَيُّهَا الْمُزَّمِّلْ قُمْ as well. قُمِ اللَّيْلَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا نِصْفَهُ أَوْ انْقُصْ مِنْهُ قَلِيلًا أَوْ زِدْ عَلَيْهِ وَرَتِّلْ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا, to strengthen the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So inshallah we'll stop in here and see if there's any questions. Yes, Ya Idris, Abu Zakaria.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Taha introduced himself to Musa alayhi salam, and he said, إِنَّنِي أَنَا اللَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا. That's the surah. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَرَبُّكَ. When did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveal who is Rabbuka? When did he reveal his name?
That what? See, the Muslims at that time, not the Muslims, the people at that time, they believe in Allah. They believe in Allah. That's why the Prophet's father's name was what? Abdullah. And Allah says, if you were to ask them who created the heaven and the earth, they will say Allah. So the notion of Allah was there already. But the problem is, they started worshipping other gods with Allah. Initially, the idols, the statues, were to them means through which they get to Allah. That's when Amr ibn al-Hayy al-Khuza'i brought the first idol from Al-Amalik, the Hubal, and he brought it back, initially as a means to get to Allah. And they started adding one God for each day until they have one for every day and for every occasion. Eventually they started worshipping these idols. But the notion of belief in Allah was there. But the choice of the word Rabbuka, especially as the first, the first introduction, is Rabbuka, convey that meaning of tenderness. That the one who's sending this to you is your own Rabb, is Rabbaka, is Iqra bismi Rabbika, is your own Rabb. Again, to build that connection, and you'll find that وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ. The word Rabb is mentioned more than any, especially Rabbaka in times of difficulties, and it's always mentioned.
In the beginning, you mentioned that Rasul learned leadership quality skill from his grandfather.
Yes.
Though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, he says, he wants to
the Prophet ليتمم مكارم الأخلاق.
وإنك لعلى خلق عظيم.
Yeah.
Also Surah Al-Imran, فبما رحمة. Here is few verses.
Yes. Sure.
Leadership quality.
Sure.
He himself a teacher came, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is his teacher. How he could learn through...
No, he learned. Sure. No, see, Jazakallah khair, that's a good question. First of all, there's no contradiction between the two. Allah subhanahu, the Prophet did say, أَدَّبَنِي رَبِّي فَأَحْسَنَ تَأْدِيبِ, that my Lord actually has raised me and he raised me well. Now, it doesn't mean that the Prophet himself did not learn from something else. And let me give you an example here. The obvious one is in the beginning of the Battle of Al-Khandaq, the battle of the trench, the Ahzab and all of that. And the Prophet was looking for opinions from the different Sahaba. And then here comes the great Salman al-Farisi. He says, Ya Rasulullah, that in Persia, when people attack us, khandaqna al-khanadaq, when people used to attack us, we will dig the trenches. And the Prophet took that trick from that thing from them. So the Prophet ﷺ was open to learn new things, even if it's coming whatever. That's why there's an expression, some they say it's a hadith, some they say it's not a hadith. وَالْحِكْمَةُ ضَالَّةُ الْمُؤْمِنِ أَنَّ وَجَدَهَا فَهُوَ حَقُّ النَّاسِ بِهَا. But the wisdom is the goal of the believer. Wherever he finds it, he's most deserving of it. In other words, if he finds something that is useful, and it does not contradict our own principles, we take it. There's nothing in Islam that says we only take it from the Prophet ﷺ.
But here is one question, another question. Also saying Surah Al-Imran, وَعْفُ عَنْهُمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ.
وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Allah يبارك فيك.
When he did with Salman first, it is a consultation. It he's a shura.
Yes, but
He's not learning from them.
no, yeah. But what's a shura? I mean, shura is a consult, is a process by which you transfer information. No. Okay, listen. Yeah. A shura is a process by which you transfer information. When I consult with him, what does it mean? I'm getting his opinion to see whether it's something that is worthwhile and I would follow it or not. That's what shura is.
He will judge.
What? Yes. But again, the Prophet ﷺ, he was raised. That when his mother sent him to Diyar Bani Sa'd, to the land of Banu Sa'd, he learned from them the eloquence. He learned from them, ﷺ. So the fact that he was a prophet and raised by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala does not preclude the fact that he learned certain things. The Prophet ﷺ was a child, like any other child. He learned certain things from the people that are around him. He learned when he grew up as well. He learned from the experience from other tribes. That's why, going back to the hadith that you mentioned, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ. He did not say to start everything from zero. He says to complete. In other words, the Prophet ﷺ was sent to complete the good morals, which means whatever was good and already existing, the Prophet will take it. The Prophet will take it, ﷺ. He did not say, I was sent to restart everything from zero, from scratch. That's why if we find, again, back to the expression that I said, al-hikmatu dalatul mu'min, the wisdom is the goal of the believer. Wherever he finds it, he's most deserving of it. In other words, if I find anything that is useful, that I can learn from, I would take it and I would learn from it. I would benefit from it. Yes, Dr.
The question is more related to linguistics, perhaps. Is the definition of Kaaba in Arabic cube?
See, it comes from the root Kaaba, from cube. That's a good question.
If you look at the original shape of the Kaaba, if you include the part that was not.
No, but see, cube is a general expression that can be a cube or like a something that is a little more elongated. And that's not like because the Kaaba, the way it is, by the way, it's not a perfect cube. The Kaaba, as it is now, it's not a perfect cube. Some sides are longer, higher than others. That's the way it was. But like I said, when it was built, this Hijr Ismail was left out. And there's a hadith, I think it was in Bukhari, where the Prophet said to Aisha that لولا أن قومك حديثي عهد بجاهلية, if your people were not fresh out of Jahiliyyah, I would have destroyed the Kaaba and we built it the way it was at the time of Ibrahim, including the Hijr and having two doors through which people actually go from one side to the other. But the Prophet ﷺ was concerned about people taking the Kaaba lightly. In other words, anyone that wants to introduce, let's destroy it and rebuild it again. That's why it's mentioned. But they left the Hijr Ismail out, even though it's part of the Kaaba.
And the other is regarding Iqra.
What?
The word Iqra.
Yes.
Can it be translated to mean recite also?
No, Iqra is read. Recite will be itlu. Recitation means tilawa. Utlu means recite. So the word Iqra is.
Someone said to me, read. First response would be, read what?
Well, see, it's like I said, the expression is more like of a symbolic expression or call to pursue knowledge. Especially that it came to somebody who's illiterate, by the way. That's why the call is to acquire knowledge. That's really what the call is for.
Ibrahim didn't show him something to read.
No, he said to him, Iqra. He says, that ma ana biqari. One narration says, what do I read? At the end of the different physical thing, and that's when he gave it to him. Iqra bismi rabbika. He said to him the first five verses. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. Let him finish. I'm sorry. Let him just finish. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, to me, read means they're looking at something and reading it versus reciting or repeating.
No, you can. Knowledge. That's what the expression actually is indicative of.
I was wondering if it could be translated.
Like I said, I think a better recitation than recite is read, because like I said, it's recite is more like utlu. Tilawa is more like reciting. Yes.
Regarding this question, because lots of non-Muslims, those who are like priest and that preaches Christianity, they ask always Muslims. Your Lord say, read. What he's supposed to read, there is no book there. You don't mention.
No, reading is not just like this, by the way. I mean, even linguistically. No, reading is not like this. Reading is sometimes when you read anything in the word. This is reading. When you read something, even in English you say that, you know. You read the truth, you read something, you pursue knowledge. All of that is under read. So that's what I'm explaining to that the expression is more comprehensive than just to refer to looking at a page and then actually verbalizing what you see. This is one example of read, but read can be more comprehensive than that.
That's why there's الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام قال اطلبوا العلم ولو في الصين.
It's not.
Seek knowledge.
Well, it's not. I mean, the hadith is not actually authentic, but the Quran says, you know, يرفع الله الذين. I was reading Surah Al-Mujadala. يرفع الله الذين آمنوكم والذين أوتوا العلم درجات. إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء. You know, قل هل يستوي الذين يعلمون والذين لا يعلمون. That is repeated over and over again. That knowledge is something that every believer should be seeking. Yes.
Khadija was Christian before.
I'm sorry, speak up a little bit.
Khadija was Christian?
No, Khadija was not. She was one of her people. She was one of the people of Mecca, like worshipping idols and whatnot. She was not Christian. But her cousin, Waraqa, he was Christian. But she was not. What? Waraqa ibn Nawfal, he became Christian. He became Christian. But he became Christian following the original teachings of Isa alayhi salam. You know, in other words, not just with the Trinity. He did not believe in the Trinity. So that's what he was. But Khadija was not. Well, not in Arabia. And Arabia was very minimal, by the way. Arabia was like away from everybody else. You know, the influence of Christianity were elsewhere, not in Arabia. That's why there was a story actually of in the southern part of Arabia, the Christians of Najran, for example, in Yemen. There were some Christians in there, you know, and of course they were in Africa, in Abyssinia, specifically actually in there, and in the northern part of the Levantine area, but not in Arabia, not in the core of Arabia. The Judaism, there was a Judaism, and if remember, in the first actually lecture, I think it's online or something, we did discuss actually how Judaism was introduced into Medina, how the whole thing actually was introduced. There was a long story actually behind the Jews of Medina, how they became, you know, and then also in the Jews of Yemen as well. Excuse me. يلا يا
وليس اقرأ.
What?
جبرائيل عليه الصلاة والسلام ليس اقرأ سيدنا محمد عليه الصلاة والسلام. He didn't know number one to read what, even if he knew how to read what. So he revealed the words. That's exactly when Adam alayhi salam submitted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He wanted to, you know, to say, I'm sorry, let's put it this way, but he knew the words. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught him what to say. In Surah Al-Baqarah, if you understand. To me, it's almost the same.
I'm not really familiar. I don't know exactly what verse you're referring to. I got the point though. I got the point very clearly. I agree with you.
No, when they say about read what? And when he said read what? Even if Prophet Muhammad
You're getting stuck in that word. Okay. Go beyond that. Read and go beyond that. خير إن شاء الله. طيب خير إن شاء الله. We'll stop in here إن شاء الله. حج أيمن. Okay. One last question إن شاء الله.
Just for the word ikra, the translation in Arabic, it doesn't mean that you read something old that you have.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Also, it means that you read something that you learn. And maybe in here, that when Jibreel asked the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, to say, ikra, from what Allah has taught him, and he have inside of his heart.
It's the beginning. Keep in mind, this is the beginning. يرحمكم الله. خير إن شاء الله. طيب جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. جزاكم الله خيرا.